All right, so buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving into a world where incompetent leadership is running the show.
Oh, boy.
We're talking about a world governed by, well, imbeciles.
That's one way to put it.
That is the actual title of the book that we're going to be discussing today.
Yes, The World Governed by Imbeciles. It's a satirical novel,
It is.
but it uses that satire to highlight some real tendencies we see in leadership sometimes.
For sure. And it's a fun way to look at some of these serious issues.
Yeah, it's kind of a thought experiment.
Yeah.
What if logic and expertise just went out the window?
Oof.
Yeah.
So the book starts out with this global summit
Okay.
on international relations.
All right.
And instead of like actual diplomacy happening, we get world leaders proposing these solutions that are so outlandish you almost can't believe it.
Yeah, it starts with the U.S. president actually suggesting that we can just like cool down global tensions by turning down the AC worldwide.
Wait, what?
Like turning down the thermostat is going to magically solve geopolitical conflicts.
So they're literally saying that turning down the AC would ease tensions between countries.
Yeah, they're operating under this assumption that all problems have these like simple surface level solutions.
Gotcha.
It's kind of a satire of that, like that tendency we sometimes see to avoid grappling with the real complexities
Right.
of a situation.
Yeah, just like put a Band-Aid on it.
Exactly.
And it's not just the U.S. president, right?
Oh, no.
Like the book portrays other leaders
Oh, yeah.
having equally ridiculous ideas.
The German chancellor is convinced that the key to world peace is to just get rid of all those pesky, turbulent feelings.
Oh, okay.
So their solution is a global ban on protests.
So basically just sweep any dissent or disagreement under the rug.
Exactly.
Pretend everything is fine.
Exactly.
And it can't get more ridiculous than that, right? Like, that's pretty bad.
It gets a little worse.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so the summit concludes with the leaders all agreeing to reduce global conflict by 50%.
Okay, 50% of what, though?
Of global conflict.
Yeah, but how are they measuring that?
Well, they don't really have a plan, but they all agree that the number 50 is lucky.
So no strategy, no plan.
Just lucky numbers.
Just vibes.
This speaks to the danger of what we call magical thinking in leadership.
Okay.
So making decisions based on whims or gut feelings or superstitions
Gotcha.
rather than evidence and logic.
Yeah, like have you ever caught yourself relying on lucky numbers or superstitions to make a decision?
Sure.
Yeah, me too.
But when it comes to leadership on a global scale, that's obviously a really big problem.
Huge problem. And then the book shifts gears a little bit.
Okay.
And it plunges us into the boiling tensions of the South China Sea,
Oh, boy.
where we've got territorial disputes that are threatening to erupt, and these brilliant minds decide to resolve it.
How?
A global game of rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, my God.
Just can't make this
It's so ridiculous.
It is.
These world leaders representing all this military power and these complex geopolitical strategies all reduced to a children's game.
Yeah, like imagine you're at work, and instead of having a productive meeting to resolve a conflict, everybody just starts playing rock, paper, scissors to make decisions.
Right.
It sounds ridiculous. But that's kind of what's happening here on a global scale.
Exactly.
So in this game of rock, paper, scissors, China wins.
Okay.
And they decide to build this giant floating island in the middle of the disputed waters.
As their official meeting point
Okay.
for peace talks.
Only problem is no one can figure out how to actually get to the island.
A lot of grand gestures, but not a lot of practical planning.
For sure.
Right.
And just to add to the chaos,
Yeah.
the British Prime Minister suggests they build a giant fence
Offense.
around the entire ocean.
To keep people out of the South China Sea.
Yeah, and then the French president says, hey, I know what we could do. We could paint the sea green.
As a new color of peace.
Where do they even come up with this stuff?
That's a great question.
It is, and it's a bigger question for us, too, as we're listening to this. Like, what does this satire tell us about the real complexities of international relations?
Right.
Why is it so dangerous to apply these, like, simplistic solutions to really nuanced situations?
Not sure.
And what stands out to you, listener, as you hear about these outlandish proposals?
Yeah. Have you seen similar things play out in your own life?
Maybe in your workplace?
Yeah, in your community organizations.
Family dynamics, even?
Right.
Let us know.
It's easy to laugh at the absurdity, right?
Oh, yeah.
This book is holding up a mirror to all of us.
Totally.
It makes us wonder if we fall into similar traps
Yeah.
of oversimplification in our own lives.
Right. Do we ever just gravitate toward those easy, catchy solutions that kind of ignore the underlying complexities of a situation.
All the time.
Yeah, it's definitely a good reminder to just pause and think, are we really thinking this through?
For sure.
Or are we just going for the easiest option? And um, the book doesn't stop at international relations.
Oh, no.
It dives into other areas where, competent leadership
Yeah.
is desperately needed.
Yeah. Yes. So it takes us on this whirlwind tour of global incompetence, from international relations to economics and even like social issues.
Bring it on.
All right. So next, we're thrown headfirst into the Middle East,
Okay.
where these unconventional leaders decide to tackle long-standing conflicts with, wait for it, a giant party.
Okay. I have to admit, that sounds kind of fun.
Right.
Who doesn't love a good party?
In theory, yes. But
Right.
in the book, the UN Secretary General, instead of addressing, the very real issues of violence and suffering,
Yeah.
becomes completely fixated on the sandwich situation for this peace party.
So they're prioritizing snacks over substance.
Pretty much.
Okay, so how does that work out for them?
Well, not great.
Not great.
It's like this brilliant use of satire to highlight how even with the best intentions, we can get so bogged down in these trivial details.
Right.
While ignoring the core issues, have you ever been in a meeting where everyone seems to be focused on the wrong things?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
And like missing the bigger picture?
Yeah, majors and the minors.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of missing the forest for the trees,
Yes.
the book doesn't let up on the economic front either.
Okay, so what happens there?
So we're catapulted into a world where finance ministers are advocating for printing unlimited money
Oh, no, that's never good.
and dismissing inflation as a side effect of, believe it or not, spicy tacos.
Spicy tacos, okay. I mean, we all love tacos, but I don't think they're the root cause of global inflation.
Exactly. This part of the book really struck me as a cautionary tale about the dangers of ignoring expert advice
Right.
and economic realities, the idea of basing global financial decisions on coin flips and poker hands.
Ugh. Yeah.
It's terrifying, but also reveals a deep distrust of expertise that we sometimes see in the real world. Have you ever encountered a situation, listener, where someone just refused to listen to reason or expert advice,
Oh, yeah.
even when the evidence was staring them in the face?
It's like talking to a brick wall.
Totally. It's certainly a reminder to be critical of the information we consume and the sources we trust, especially in today's world where misinformation can spread like wildfire. But amidst all this chaos and absurdity,
Okay, there's got to be some light at the end of the tunnel.
right, the book does offer a glimmer of hope.
Okay, good.
It introduces this grassroots movement called Citizens for Sanity
Citizens for Sanity, I love
to
it.
use social media to advocate for rational thinking and common sense solutions.
Okay, so a voice of reason rising up against the tide of incompetence.
That's it. And they actually start making a difference.
Nice.
So while world leaders are busy, well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
These local councils are focusing on things like sustainable practices, community development, and actually addressing real problems.
Good for them.
Proving that you don't need a fancy title or a global platform to make a positive impact.
That's awesome. It reminds me of that saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly.
But let's get back to those world leaders.
Okay.
And their, unconventional approach to global problem solving. I hear things get even more bizarre.
Oh, you have no idea. The book reaches its climax with these world leaders engaging in how do I even put this delicately, a massive game of Twister.
What, like the children's game?
With the colored dots?
With the colored dot? Wait,
Yeah.
are they seriously trying to solve global issues with a game of Twister?
You can't make this stuff up.
Next level.
It's absolutely ridiculous. But that's the point. The book uses this over-the-top imagery to really symbolize like the utter chaos and dysfunction
Right.
of their leadership.
I can just picture it now, these powerful figures all tangled up on this giant Twister mat,
Right.
contorted into ridiculous positions, and nobody even understanding the rules of the game.
And it almost leads to total global collapse.
Oh, no.
But then in this moment of unexpected self-awareness, these imbeciles, as the book calls them, they realize they have no idea what they're doing.
Oh, wow.
And they decide to resign en masse.
So they all just quit.
It's almost like a collective, oh crap, we've really messed this up moment.
Do you buy it? I mean, is it really that easy just to hit the reset button and expect things to magically change?
That's the question the author leaves us with, and it's something I think we all grapple with in the real world. Can we truly escape the cycle of incompetent leadership?
Right. Or are we doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again?
It's a pretty heavy question, and one that I think each listener needs to answer for themselves. But before we get too bogged down in existential dread, Let's shift gears a little bit and explore what this all means for us, the everyday citizens.
Right.
What role do we play in all of this? Where do we go from here? Okay, so we spent all this time in this satirical world of the world governed by imbeciles,
Right.
where common sense is like totally taken a backseat.
On a vacation.
And leadership seems to be more about absurdity than, actually solving problems.
For sure.
So, like, what does it all mean for us
Right.
here in the real world?
Well, the book ends on this kind of cautious note of optimism.
Correct.
With this possibility of, new leadership emerging after the imbeciles all resign.
But it also leaves us with some really important questions like,
Yeah.
can we truly break free from these cycles of incompetence?
Right.
And if so, how?
It's easy to laugh at these fictional scenarios in the book.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a challenge for all of us to reflect on the decision-making we see in everyday life.
Right. Are we promoting rational thinking? Are we
Yeah.
using sound judgment?
Are we falling into those same traps of oversimplification
Totally.
and magical thinking?
It's about looking at those in charge, but also looking at ourselves.
So how do we do that? Where do we
Yeah.
even begin?
Well, I think for starters, it's about being more aware
Okay.
of the information that we're consuming,
Yeah.
the sources that we're trusting,
Right.
and even the potential biases that we might have.
So it's not just what we think, but it's how we think.
Exactly. In today's world with, all of this information coming from every direction,
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
it's more important than ever to develop critical thinking skills.
To be able to sift through all the noise and figure out what's real and what's not.
Determine what's credible.
Right.
It's not.
And the book also highlights the power of collective action,
Right.
like the Citizens for Sanity movement.
Yeah, they were able to make a difference even when, the leaders weren't listening.
So you're saying that even in a world seemingly run by imbeciles, there's still hope
Absolutely.
for people who value reason and logic to
To make their voices heard.
makes your voices heard. Yeah, and that doesn't have to be on a global scale.
It starts with you,
Yeah, like in your workplace, in your community.
even your family.
Yeah, how can you encourage people to use rational thinking
Right.
and make sound decisions? It could be speaking up at a meeting
Yes.
when you see that something's not right.
Or sharing an article
Yeah,
with a friend.
right. It's like those ripples in a pond.
Exactly.
Even small actions can have a bigger impact than we realize.
Totally.
So if we had to just pick a few key takeaways for our listeners,
Sure.
what would they be?
I think it comes down to this. Be aware, be critical, and be engaged.
Okay, I like that.
Be aware of your own biases, the information you're taking in.
Right.
Be critical of the decisions being made.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge the status quo, and then be engaged in your community.
Yeah, get involved.
Your sphere of influence.
That's right.
You have more power than you think.
Well said. I think we've had some good laughs today
We have.
while we've been exploring the satirical world.
For sure.
But I think the book gives us some really valuable lessons.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that even when things seem crazy, we have the power to choose reason over chaos,
Right.
logic over emotion, evidence over gut feelings.
I love that.
And who knows, maybe by doing so, we can prevent the real world from turning into a giant game of Twister.
Fingers crossed.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep those brains engaged.